Okay, I want to talk about developing auditing programs. First of all, I put the emphasis on things that can be directly observed, whether I visually observe it or it's something you do with a lab test, like for food safety. You know, record keeping. Oh, I worked in construction for 20 years on installing equipment. Well, we had more fake records than you ever can find. And I've gone through plant internal audits where I know they made them up. You know, they dairy cows with a 0% and 1% prod score. I don't believe that. You know, so let's just look at the implementation of a system that's been now used for over 10 years. That it's worked. And it's worked based on what are the critical control points that are directly measurable. And you've got to get a passing score on all 5 of these. And if you don't get a passing score on all 5 of these, you fail, period. You know, there'd be no thing where you could not chill melons or not put chlorine on them and pass an audit. Boy, those are critical control points. That plant should have been delisted right there on the spot, not be getting an excellent score. So this gets into how do you weight it. I have found with the clients I've worked with, they want that stupid single number. I wish it wasn't that way, but that's what they want. Well, then you better have it so that if they don't chill the melons, it's like 50 points off, so it's going to be an automatic failure. Or if they're really terrible, they're going to get a minus score. You see, this is where, you know, I've done work on a lot of voluntary standards. And the AMI standard for slaughter plants, and I'm not going to use harvest facilities, I think that's BS. I can go out to Hollywood and I can call them slaughterhouses. And I'm not going to use, you know, gilding the lily, silly words like, you know, like a harvest facility. But you do certain bad things, you're just going to fail, period. And you've got to make those things be enough points off. And I've now worked with dairy cow committees for dairy cow things, chicken, okay, hens, pigs, and when you get on these committees, what I have found, I know this isn't very nice, the worst producers get on these committees to water down standards. That's not a nice thing to say, but that's happened. And the original AMI standard that I developed in 1997 after doing USDA baseline data, well, I'm going to be perfectly honest, it flew under the radar. It was Temple's little toy, and we actually got a strict standard. But other things coming out since then, I had a stupid conversation about 7 years ago or so with a pork board. Okay, we were making standards for how many skinny sows you could have on a farm. A body score of 1 is a half-dead sow. And they wanted to make it on their audit that you could have 10% half-dead sows and pass an audit. I go, wait a minute, I've been on a lot of places, I haven't been on a farm that bad. I don't know how a farm that bad could even be in business. I said, that's not an audit, that's a joke. Well, and I have to say in the previous speaker's talk about these FDA standards, I was sucking all that up, you know, really taking that in. Get control of the whole entire supply chain. Okay, I want to just go through how we implemented this auditing program. And in 1996, I did a survey for the USDA, and we measured these 5 things. And the thing is, 5 things I got on this slide. Percentage of animals stunned with 1 application of the stunner, percentage insensible, percentage mooing and vocalizing during handling, really good measure. It measures a multitude of sins. Electric prod use, falling down, slamming doors on them, squashing them in restraint devices. How many animals fall down anywhere in the facility? How many animals did you move with the electric prod? I can't believe how people try to game the system. Falling down, we define that as the body touches the ground. So then we get the stupid joker that has a pork plant, and he tried to say, well, the pig didn't fall down because the ham touched the ground and the ham is not body. I get really sick and tired of this round and round BS. But the thing that was good about this is it's very clear, just like traffic rules. And what we did is to pass for beef, you had to get 95% of the animals dead with a single shot from the stunner. And that's where the top 25% of the plants could do it on initial baseline data. Insensible, man, you don't cut up anything until you get it dead. That's 100%. How many animals vocalizing? Okay, to pass the McDonald's audit or Wendy's audit, only 3. You're allowed 3. 3 animals mooing up there in the stunning area. And I just read a brand new paper by Bourquet in the Journal of Meat Science. They had a really bad plant over in France. They had 25% of them vocalizing. On my original baseline data, we had 35% of the cattle vocalizing because they took Holstein dairy cows, tried to cram them in a chute designed for little short Herefords. That didn't work. Falling, it's 1%. That's everywhere in the facility. 1%. No more than 1% can fall. Electric pride use, if you want to get an excellent score, you've got to get it down to 5%. That's 25% of the animals for a passing score. But you see, they had to make certain numbers. Boy, and when we started implementing this, boy, did the plants scram, big fit. And I was on these initial audits. The first year that we implemented this, I went to 26 plants with the McDonald's people, and the Wendy's people were right up there too, getting these exit meetings. They were complaining they couldn't do it, but there were a few plants that did it. And I said, well, your sister plant down the road's doing it just fine. And the good news is we were able to get almost all the plants into good compliance without spending a fortune. There were 75 plants on that original supplier list. Only 3 had to build expensive things. And 3 had to have the plant manager removed because nothing changed until the plant manager was removed. And we were able to fix the plants with simple things. Non-slip flooring at the unloading ramp and in the stun boxes, lights, adding lights, moving lights, because cattle are afraid of reflections or the dark. Put up a solid panel so they didn't see a conveyor moving by. Just very, very simple things. Training people, but it was simple. It was very, very simple. It's yes-no scoring. Did it moo? Yes or no. I don't want to count the moos. I don't want to get into how loud it mooed, because I've a PACO trainer, and you know, it's really, really simple. It's per animal. If it either fell or it did not fall, I'd either touch it with the electrical device or I didn't. I can't tell if you push the button. So if you touch it with a prod, I count it. It's gotta be simple. That's how you get what's called inter-observer reliability. And I noticed up on one of the previous slides about variability of enforcement. You know, the latest USDA directive on humane slaughter is, the USDA is really trying to do a good job on this, and we still have things like minimized agitation and excitement. I don't know what that means. Minimum electric prod use, I don't know what that means. You know, one person's idea of minimum might be very different from somebody else's idea of minimum. And the other thing is, we score 100 animals. It's based on direct observation. It's not a paperwork audit. And I get really fed up with everything turning into a paperwork audit. I'm glad to see that the other auditing programs are now going 60-40, where 60% is out in the plant. And the other thing is, I really pound into auditors, writing good comments. That's really important. Okay, the principle is, you've got to figure out what are good outcome measures. What are the measures that detect multiple problems? Then there's some things, well, like not chilling melons. Well, then you better measure how cold the water is. Well, you need to just fail. You know, there's certain things you just got to do on an engineering standard. You just have to do it. But falling can be caused by either a slippery floor or poor handling. It's an outcome variable. Now, of course, outcome variables of food safety would be things like, you know, microbacteria and microbiology lab tests. Those are outcome measures. Vocalization can be caused by a bunch of different things. You see, you can't measure 100 things in a place. That's going to make you go crazy. You got to figure out what are the really important things you either got to have or not have, and what are some of the good measurements. I would say they're doing swab tests, and then you got to figure out, well, how many swab tests you got to do on how many different places to, you know, to get a reasonable confidence that you're going to catch a problem. Because you got to have something that I can train somebody to do in a day-and-a-half workshop. That's the reality. And then for PACO training, we do 2 plants during the PACO training, and then they got to do 3 more plants with an experienced auditor. Because as some of these auditing programs have expanded, we've gotten into some very bad problems, like with a chicken auditor doing a beef plant. Is just going into a beef plant. Never even been in a beef plant before? No, that's not okay. And he was doing the food safety audit in there too. It's not okay. No, they got to go to 5 places with an experienced person. Then we have things that are automatic failures, dragging non-ambulatory animals. And then people try to say, well, if I push them with the bobcat loader, that's not dragging. So I go, yeah, okay, scooting, that also is going to count. Beating up animals, poking sensitive areas, deliberately driving animals on top of other animals. And I say deliberate because sometimes they'll jump on each other and I can't stop that. And deliberate slamming of gates on animals, where it's done on purpose. See, there's some things there where you've got to put the purpose in there. Also, we have there written in there that the acts of abuse are not limited to this list. I can't figure out every perversion somebody might do and list it, like putting cigarettes out on them or some other, really bad thing like that. And then there are some practices that are prohibited on the American Meat Institute guideline. According to the industry guidelines, shackling and hoisting of dragging conscious animals for religious slaughter, the industry guideline bans that. The Humane Slaughter Act has an exemption for that. Things like trip floor boxes, some of the places that were doing shackling and hoisting for religious slaughter did have that. That's really hideous. Run them in there. You have a hydraulic thing that jerks the floor up, that throws the cow down. Really nasty. You get a 100% falling score. So that's going to be an automatic failure. Any equipment that is designed to make animals fall down. The thing is, you got to get good measures to detect multiple problems, because I got to have an audit that doesn't take a week to do. The Europeans right now have the European Animal Welfare Quality Audit, and it's got some good things in it for farm audits, but it's so complicated. It's too difficult to train people on it. You got to have something where you can do it in a half a day, roughly, because McDonald's and other companies, they send a food safety auditor in there, does both the welfare audit and food safety audit. 1 day per plant. You've got to have something where you got some reasonable use of the people. I mean, the thing about Baxter, that was definitely going for the lowest cost. But we got to keep costs reasonable. We can't have things where costs are just totally through the roof. Another thing that I find in talking about these things is there's a difference between a commercial auditing system and methods that are used for scientific research. You might be doing a lot more samples, let's say, for scientific study. And commercial systems, you've got to have something that's simple and practical. Because if it's not simple and practical, I can't train them to do it. I still have a zillion questions about per animal. We'll be out there in the plant, and I'll explain to them he's either silent or he moves. So the cow moves 4 times. Is that 4 points off or 1 point off? It's 1 point off, unless an act of abuse was involved, making them move. Now, these are the scores that a beef plant has to make in order to, to pass the audit. And the thing is, they got to get a passing score on all 5 of the things. And there's more than 5 on there because, a plant may have a head holder or not have a head holder. But you can't get in a situation where you fail on falling, but then you got enough points on paperwork and everything else that you can pass. And there needs to be certain things where, the thing for melons, maybe the chlorine and the chilling, you don't have those things, you fail, period. You just fail. You call up and you delist them right then and there. And this is the scores that you have to do for pigs for correct electrical stunner placement. The thing I like about this is it's like traffic rules. Traffic rules, when you think about it, as you travel all around, there's some differences in how the police are going to enforce them, but for the most part, they work pretty darn well. Okay, what we did is I had a USDA survey. I collected baseline, and the thing that I'm finding now, while I've been on these committees, is the bad producers get in there and they want to make an audit that the worst place can pass. And this has happened with every single species. You've got to have standards. I think we got to look at standards. And, I really like the thing they were saying about the JBS plant where they put the people that are skinning out legs, which is a very critical food safety procedure. I got pictures of the kids up there in their workstation. Because if they skin out that leg badly, their kids could get sick. I think we have to look at everything that we do and say, well, how would you like it if your wedding guests looked at this? Could you defend this to the public? Could I stand up at a Barnes & Noble in New York and defend this? Let me tell you something really disgusting I saw. And it was within the last year and a half. I went to turkey plant. And I went in there, look at some handling stuff, look at a bunch of stuff, and I was real happy. Then we had to go back out there to look at some stuff, and I don't think they planned on having me see the heavy manufacturing toms. Hideous doesn't begin to describe these toms. They were really big, they were full of breast blisters. Okay, I can cut those off. But the thing that was really bad is that on about 5 of these toms, and I was there for maybe 5 minutes, the whole drumstick was gangrenous black. Ugh. Boy, I'd never seen anything like this in a chicken. And it was going down a line into the manufacturing meat. That tom should have gone in a garbage can. How could you defend that? No, they cut that disgusting drum off, and then the rest of the meat went into whatever their turkey ham or whatever. I'm like, oh. And I don't care if that's, even if it's microbiology safe. And I found out that what happened is that the turkeys are growing so fast that their tendons were snapping, and the whole drum had gone necrotic. I'm going, this is sick. No, that's not okay. That's, yeah, how can you imagine trying to sell that to your family? Would you want to feed that to your family? Okay, let's look at some of the things they've learned in 10 years of doing this. I've gotten data from 10 major restaurant companies, from 2 major restaurant companies. Beef line speeds from 45 to 390 an hour, pork from 50 an hour to 1,000 an hour, so we got a nice mixture of different kinds of plants there. And things have improved a lot. When I originally collected the baseline data, only 30% of the plants could shoot 95% of the cattle on the first shot. You know why they couldn't do it? They failed to maintain the equipment. They failed to maintain the stunner. They just let them break. I'd go into plants and they'd have 4 busted guns. This is back in in the bad old days, early 90s, when I was working on installing center track restrainers. Boy, and they could really tear up equipment too. You know, now people have to maintain stuff. And this has gotten a whole lot better. Yep, and a person would be standing over the clipboard and collecting data. Okay, let's look at some other things. Let's look at insensibility. That's gotten a whole lot better over the years. The USDA has been getting a lot more strict. You know, here we can measure improvements here. Boy, I can tell you, back in the bad old days, it was bad. And how about vocalization? You know, percentage of plants where 3% or less of the cattle vocalized. They could pass the vocalization audit. That's gotten a whole lot better. And even the kosher plants, the ones that have got decent restrainer equipment, you know, they're passing it now. And then how about electric prod use? They could, you know, stay within that standard. That has improved. And then there's some people that say, well, maybe we ought to just ban electric prods. No, because you get an animal every once in a while that absolutely will not go. I've seen people break the tails off, stick something up the butt. But one thing that most of the plants are doing now is they've banned people carrying the prod around all the time. Can't carry it around all the time. Plants have come up with some interesting alternatives, like stiff scrub brush. That works really well for getting the pigs to go up the chute. A vibrating prod. That doesn't totally replace the electric prod, but it replaces it a good deal of the time. And then how about falling down? We didn't, for some reason, didn't collect falling data in the year 2000. I don't know why. But you know, that's gotten better. The thing I found on falling data is the plant either has a great big problem or they just don't have a problem. We've learned some things over the years. And when we first started, there was no difference between announced and unannounced audits. People did all kinds of bad stuff in front of you because they didn't know any better. Hell, then what we ended up finding out is then people did know better, and then they learned how to act good when you were there with the clipboard. And what we found is stunning didn't change. Stunning was so dependent on equipment. And plants now had dedicated maintenance programs. They had test equipment to test the gun to make sure it was hitting hard enough. And the video auditing, some interesting things learned on that, is that the electric prod use, electric prods came back out when they didn't know the cameras were turned on yet. You know, they'd start using electric prods a whole bunch more. Stunning just didn't seem to change. Another thing that was found when the video auditing came out is some of the plants had falsified their internal records. They didn't match the video audit records. Now, to make it more positive, what some of the companies have done, I've heard Mike Siemens talk, that he's done at various meetings, is every Cargill plant gets the data every week, And then the plant that has the best scores gets a pizza party maybe once a month. So you're making it into something positive, which I think is really, really a good thing. Okay, let's look at the pork plants. Well, again, the stunner getting placed correctly, gotten a whole lot better. A lot of this is management. The other thing you can't do is there's no way you can run 1,200 pigs an hour on one restrainer and get the stunner on right. It just doesn't work. And this brings up another thing. You understaff and overwork. Another thing I've seen, you get the line going too fast and the guy's not going to sterilize the knife. That's the first step they drop out. And the thing I have found about workers messing up on the line, on any kind of really precision procedure, you can up the speed, up the speed, up the speed, and then they go, it crashes. It's like breaking a bridge. They just can't do all the motions until they'll leave out a step. Usually going to be the sterilizer step. And some of the early data that AeroSite collected on sterilizer usage baseline, it was bad. It was bad. It was like 20%. Now it's way, way up. You know what? They did the same thing in hospitals on hand washing. It was bad. Bad. It was like 20%. And then they got it way, way up to like 95%. Okay, insensibility over the years. That's improved. And then this is 5% of the pigs moving electric product